Hey everyone, welcome back! So far we've talked about what oral histories are, where they're important, how to find people to talk to, and what kind of technology that you're probably going to use when you record them. Today I'm going to be giving you some advice on how to conduct interviews, from how to make the most of your technology to how to guide the conversation in such a way that you get the information you need. First things first, never leave home without extra batteries or the charger or extra memory for your recording device. The last thing you want is for your recorder to run out of space or power in the middle of a really good interview. This is another good reason to always keep a notebook and pens or pencils on hand. If for some reason your recorder or even your backup recorder stop working, then you can at least take notes on what's going on and what you're talking about. But having to record your interview by taking notes is like absolute worst case scenario, so make sure to always test your devices before you record with them. You're going to want to prevent background noises from interfering with your recording as much as possible, and believe me, you never realize just how many background noises there are until you start hearing them in a recording. Try to find a smaller, quiet room away from appliances, televisions, radios, and other potential sources of background noises if you can. An office or a study works great if one is available. Also, make a note of any background noises that you happen to hear just in case they do pop up on the recording, and that way you at least have a reference point in your notes for exactly what it is. Put your recorder on a table or similar surface between you and your informant, but maybe a little closer to your informant, and speak clearly so that your recording device picks up your questions. Your informant should be able to speak pretty normally and still be easy to hear on the recording. Now, when you're talking to your friends or your family, you probably like to make certain noises to indicate that you're listening to them. Things like, yeah, uh-huh, right, yep, noises like that. But your recording device is going to pick up those sounds during an interview, so it's better to just stay quiet, try not to make those noises at all, and show that you're listening to your informant by just nodding and making regular eye contact. Trust me, it's gonna be weird enough to have to listen to yourself talking in your own recordings without having to also hear yourself go every few seconds. Plus, it'll give you cleaner audio to work with later on. And like I said last time, just remember that some recording devices will actually stop after like 15 to 25 minutes or so, so make sure to keep an eye on how long you've been recording in case you need to hit the record button again. Moving on now from your devices to the actual interview. You should start and end every recording by saying your name, the informant's name, the date, and the location of the interview. If you think it's important to know for what you're researching, you can also ask your informant to give, for example, their parents' names, their grandparents' names, or their siblings' names, where their family is from, and anything else that you think might be relevant to what you're studying. All of this helps give a context for the recording, which might be important for considering other details later on. Also take notes on your surroundings, how you're feeling, how your informant seems to be feeling, things you might be seeing or smelling or hearing in the environment, as these little sensory details can help you remember a lot more information later on. It can also help to draw a little floor plan of the room in your notes with things like where you're seated, where your informant is seated, and where the recorder is positioned, just to help you remember these things later. And if it helps, you can ask your informant if you're allowed to take pictures. Make sure to always have your questions written down ahead of time and try to avoid questions that have a simple yes or no answer. You're just not going to get a lot of detail out of that. Also, don't worry too much if you get a little bit off topic in your interview. Even if what you're talking about isn't exactly what your project is about, you might still learn some really useful information. You're also going to want to set aside a good chunk of time for your interview, say like a block of 2 to 3 hours. Now, you definitely don't have to use all of that time, but it really helps prevent you from having to rush things and gives you lots of time to tell stories and ask questions and take breaks if that's needed. Now, a lot of people get understandably nervous when they're being recorded, especially if they don't know you very well or if they've never been recorded before. So setting aside a couple of hours gives you plenty of time to really get comfortable with each other and get to know each other and get used to having the recorder there in front of you. You could probably break the ice to start with by cracking a joke, asking about their families, or even maybe asking them to tell a particular story that you happen to know they're really good at telling. Now, I bet you're thinking that this is going to be hard to remember to do all of this at once. And it is. Fieldwork is just one of those things you really have to practice to get properly good at. That said, if you're allowed to bring someone along with you to help you, you totally should. Another person can help you keep track of your devices while you're focused on interviewing, and they might even think of questions that you didn't even think to ask. So if you're allowed to invite a buddy along to help you, do it. And that's all I've got for you today. I really hope these tips help you make your interviews run at least a little bit more smoothly. Special thanks to the Labrador Institute and the Labrador Historical Society for sponsoring these videos, and I'll see you in the next video where we're going to talk about the importance of ethical practices in recording oral history. This stuff is really important, so you're not going to want to miss it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.